Hello, my friends. How's everybody doing on this Saturday? As you can tell, maybe you can't. Anyway, forgot what I was going to say. That's not unusual. I think I was going to say something about the wind. I'm kind of hiding in a corner over here. You can probably hear the wind. It's just howling. The last 2 days it's been blowing like 25 and 30 miles an hour. That's going to shake the fence that my phone's sitting on. Hopefully it doesn't upset the apple cart too much. Smoking this little Italian made bent something. I don't know what you would call it, but it's what Parson Rick and Miss Chris gifted to me. Actually, you could call it a gift, I guess. I didn't win anything really. But it has been a fantastic little smoking pipe. I've smoked this thing quite a bit. And I've really only got two that are this style of a bent pipe. I've got a Blakemore Briars that's bent, but it's not like, not like this style. It's more just a kind of a bent bulldog. Doesn't have too much of a bend in it. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is this is a great smoking little bent pipe. The other one's a Peterson, which is also a great pipe. And I'd reach for this one as often as I reach for that Peterson. They're both pretty good smokers. Sorry, I'm making some lemonade here. Life gave me a couple of lemons this week. In this pipe, smoking some of that. One of my favorites from a long time back. A long time. One of the first ones I ever got my hands on. I think Berg sent me some of it. I got a few tins of that laying around here. So anyway, yesterday I didn't do a video on Friday because things were just unbelievably hectic, and I actually did do a video, and after 18 minutes of yakking, it got destroyed. So let's pretend I uploaded this one yesterday and you just now found it. Top 5 Friday. I'm going to make this one a quick one, I hope. A couple of weeks ago I did rock drummers. I think I ended up doing 10 of them. I could probably do 10 or 15 of these as well, but top 5 rock bass players. I know there's some guys out there that can get pretty fancy and intricate from their fretwork, and I get into some of those. But these are ones that I always think of when I think of great rock bass players. Kind of set the tone for a lot of people that came after them. So Pipes and Music may have some input on this. Being a bass player himself, he's probably got, I know a couple that he would put on the list probably that aren't on mine, just simply because they don't fit my criteria. Jocko being one of them. But anyway, here we go. Number 1, John Entwistle from The Who. the ox. He kind of defines bass playing for me. He's rock solid, and he does some stuff, some really fancy finger work, a lot with his picking hand. Not just a bunch of notes and a bunch of frets, but he really does some interesting stuff with his picking hand. He's a finger style player. I'll tell you, one of the things that amazed me when I heard it from him, I've listened to The Who for a long time, but I heard an isolated bass track, so it's just the bass guitar, from the song Baba O'Reilly. And if you remember, the main melody of that song is this repeats over and over. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Seems kind of boring, especially for a bass player. But this isolated bass track, he's got so much stuff going on inside those three notes and in and around those three notes. It just blew my mind. I've never heard that. Listen to the whole track. Somebody separated out the bass guitar, and there is a lot of stuff going on that track, and it's very typical of the stuff he plays. He was a monster. He was a monster bassist. Well, that's an interesting little creature that landed right there in front of me. I don't know what that is. See if he likes smoke. Nope. Go away. Anyway, number two, Mr. Christopher Squire from Yes. He's another one of those bass players that kind of stands apart from the rest of the field because the stuff he plays isn't typically what you hear bass players playing. Or at least it wasn't in 1970. People have come a long way and changed a lot of styles, have come and gone since then, but he was an incredible bass player. So much so that he could actually carry the song just with his bass playing, and actually did in a couple of songs. If you've ever heard the song The Fish, go check that out. The Fish by Yes. He was called The Fish. But there's some serious multiple tracks and multiple layers of bass going on in that song. It's hard to believe that it's bass, but he's killing it. And he did that on everything they played. I mean, I said this about Bill Bruford, but he's standing in there with a group of world-class musicians. It's hard to hang on for the ride sometimes, but every one of them was driving the train on every song. Christopher Squire. Number 3, Geddy Lee from Rush. He kind of took, they were kind of a cross between a lot of the hard, heavy rock that came before them and a lot of the progressive stuff that was going on at the time. Yes, King Crimson, stuff like that. And they mixed those two genres together and created a sound that is instantly recognizable as Yes, no matter which era or which style they're playing. As Rush, I said Yes. But his role in that band is huge. He played bass, he played keyboards, he played foot pedals, he sang. He's the main guy in the band. He didn't write the lyrics, but did all that stuff. In a lot of cases, he did it at the same time, playing bass pedals and keyboards at the same time, or playing fret and bass and doing stuff on keyboards at the same time. But anyways, bass playing is what I'm talking about, and I think it's just fantastic. They went through a whole bunch of different stages, and every one of those stages, his stuff is just magic to me. One of my favorite bands by far. Number 4, a little different style of music. Steve Harris from Iron Maiden. He had a very unique style as well. You often hear the word galloping when people describe his bass playing, and that's the perfect word to describe it. It feels like you're riding a horse while he's playing the bass. It's just whatever it is he's doing. You know, he wrote a lot of the music that they play, wrote a lot of the lyrics. His bass always had a unique sound, at least in that style of music. A lot of other people use real heavy bottom end stuff, and his was he had a lot of, you could hear a lot of his fretting, a lot of his slapping and stuff like that he played. A very bright sounding bass. Kind of similar to Chris Squire, but completely different at the same time. In an effort to keep this pipe from burning up in the wind, I think I let it go out. And since we're doing my favorite bass players, very hard to narrow it down to 5. Some of the ones that I'm leaving off this list are John Paul Jones, Flea, killer bass player, Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath, John Mayung from Dream Theater, and Billy Sheehan. And Billy's been in a band called Talus. He was in Mr. Big. He's been in David Lee Roth's band. He's been in countless side projects. Some really cool stuff. He's kind of an amalgamation of, if you put a lot of those bass players together, you would get something like him, like John Entwistle and Christopher Squire and Steve Harris all rolled into one. You can throw in some Jaco Pastorius. But number 5, the one I put on my list just because I enjoy listening to him so much, and he's such an interesting player and an interesting human being, is Les Claypool. He kind of redefined what you could do on a bass guitar for a lot of people. I don't know what brought him to the place he was at musically. But he came at it at a different direction than anybody I'd ever heard when I first heard him. If you listen to a lot of that early Primus, the guitar is almost just color for the song. Not a lot of chords being played, not a lot of lead guitar licks being played. It's just almost noise in a way. In the bass, it carries the whole song in a lot of instances. And the way he plays and the stuff he plays is just very unique. That's what I like about a lot of these guys. All 5 of these guys I mentioned are pretty unique. Probably the least unique about them is probably Steve Harris. But anyway, there you have my favorite 5 rock bass players. Oh, and I left one out. I meant to mention him, I forgot. It's Tony Levin. Tony Levin is practically without equal on bass. I mean, he does stuff that nobody else really does. He plays a Chapman stick a lot. If you've never seen one of those, it's like it's hard to describe. It's like a 10-string instrument, bass oriented. You play it with 2 hands, both on the fretboard. There's no picking and stuff like that going on. It's mostly just tapping and that kind of stuff. But it's got like a 5-string bass on one side and then a high register set of strings on the other side. And you can get some pretty cool sounds out of him. And he's an absolute master of the Chapman stick. But on top of that, he played with King Crimson. Done a lot of stuff with Peter Gabriel. Played with a group, a side project that the guys in Dream Theater put together called Liquid Tension Experiment. That's absolutely fabulous. I don't know if Tony Levin invented it or not, but he did this thing, I'll show you with my tamper here, where he attached these little drumstick looking things to his fingers. And they hung off the end of his fingers about 5 or 6 inches. And he had them on 3 fingers. And so instead of playing his bass, with his fingers like that, he was using these things like hammers. Boom, boom, boom. And I first saw him do that with Peter Gabriel. And very unique, very cool sound. Very percussive bass playing, really bright. It's just a really cool sound. But anyway, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Tony Levin. So let me know what you think, what I messed up on, what I did that you agree with, who you would put in your list. Alright, until next time, I will see you later. Enjoy yourselves. Have a great smoke, a great weekend. There's pipe smoking dietary used to say. I haven't seen Carl in a while. Where are you, buddy? Rock on.